question is, as a heterosexual person, I have a question to say to Pete and his mom, is it wrong for me just to say, well, okay, I'm heterosexual, so I don't have to worry about these issues anymore, so I'll just sit back and let everybody else fight it out? Is that wrong of me to think that way, or should I be? Because it's God's house, it's not Mom's house.
Well,
everybody's welcome.
Is
it wrong for me just to sit back and wash my hands of it being a Christian?
if you were a Christian in the 30s and you were in Germany, would you have said, well, I'm a Christian, I'm not a Jew, so I don't have to worry about I don't have to, in the early part of the 30s, when they first said to Jews, you can't hold office anymore, you can't own land, you can't own a business. And people stood by and said, well, that really doesn't affect me. And then as time went on, when they started taking people to the gas chambers, people stood by and said, well, that really doesn't affect me. I mean, what do you feel that you would have done and been then?
You make my heart show how much you love me?
I love you so much.
Okay.
I'm going to draw someone. I'm going to draw you.
Okay.
It's going to be a surprise.
That is a surprise nose. Oh, it's a hand.
Oh.
Surprise!
What is that?
It's a turkey.
Oh.
Hold on. Watch
That
this.
was a surprise.
You know what? Watch. It's not a turkey. It's just like you. So I'm going to try. So watch. I'm going to draw next.
Show Daddy how you can draw a turkey, okay?
Kevin and Grant, are you guys married?
Yes, we are.
Where did you meet and where did you get married? How'd that work?
Well, we met a long time ago. 20 years?
20 years.
20 years ago.
In Baltimore.
Yeah. And we've been officially a couple for 16 years. 17th coming June. And we got married when it was legal, I think it is again, in California in October, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah.
This is my name.
Landon, yes.
Let's take a minute.
Oink, 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 oink. He was opening the door.
Grant, maybe you can tell your story.
Sure.
Don't cry.
I love you so much.
I don't want him to cry.
They're good tears, though. They're good tears. Yep. Okay, better. All right.
This is not the community that we want to give up to conservatives to say they're the only people with moral values, they're the only people that get to be in public space because of what you did, because of your collective power as lesbian, gay, bi, trans people and our allies. Yesterday, we met with Cameron Village and they gave us everything we asked for. We were able to demand and get, because of your power, complete, broad, anti-discrimination training around racism, classism, sexism, ableism, and homophobia.
people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop.
Many people do assume that there are these protections. They assume you can't fire someone for being gay. They assume you can't kick someone out of a school. And the fact is we just don't have those protections in North Carolina and in most of the country. You know, whether it's in the workplace or trying to rent an apartment or just trying to get your education as a student. We don't have those protections, and that's really what our work is about, is trying to make that possible for people to just live their lives. You know, I think there's overwhelming public support for those kinds of protections for employment and housing and public accommodations, but most people think we already have them.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, one of the heartbreaking parts of my job, and it happens almost on a weekly basis, is getting a call from someone who's been fired or who's been kicked out of their apartment, and wanting to know what they can do. And very often I have to be the person that tells them, well, you probably don't have any legal recourse. And of course I refer them to resources and you know, try to find help if it's possible. But
Does that
people
happen
think
here?
they have those protections.
Does that happen here in Raleigh? Do people lose their jobs because they're gay?
It does happen. I think it happens more outside of urban areas, but it can happen anywhere. And you know, it really just takes one boss who doesn't like gay people for it to happen. And if you don't have protections in the law or in company policy, there's really nothing that can be done about it.
That week I spent 10 days in Vietnam going through all the paperwork to get his visa in order. First we had to get a Vietnamese passport for him because of course he's still a Vietnamese citizen at that point. And then get an American visa for him to enter the country. We had lined up already through all the paperwork that as soon as we landed, the moment we landed in the United States, he became an American citizen, which was a really important thing. And it would have only been more wonderful if my husband could have been there to enjoy it as well. But with laws the way they are, it was imprudent because our goal, of course, was to bring a child home and not get snagged up in complications. And then we flew into Raleigh-Durham Airport here, and that's when Grant got to meet Landon for the first time.
He was slumped over in a stroller the first time I saw him knocked out.
Because it was like midnight when we arrived. So, you know,
I
and
didn't
our
really
clocks,
see too much, but
were off.
When we got home from the airport, Glinda, our dog, we knew it was going to probably be a little much for him, and we didn't want her to scare him. So I took him for just a little walk down the street outside and held his hand for the first time, and we were just walking. And he was such a good little boy. And he had probably no clue what was going on, but he was.
But my doggy didn't scare me.
No, because we put her in the other room, didn't we, when we came back in?
That first day, she kind of did scare you a little bit. You can't remember, but.
Well, I got I painted his room, and I got the crib and the stroller and the car seats and all the fun things like that.
The sheets and the blankets and.
Yeah, all the bedding and dishes and all that kind of thing. And then that first night when we got back into the house, he went to take his shoes off, and he took his shoes off, and he must have learned it at the orphanage. He put them right next to each other, lined up at the side of the door. And
we knew he was our perfect child.
I was a baby. I didn't do that.
That's right.
You did do that.
Perfect.
Well, I was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I was big when I did that.
You still do it now?
No, but babies don't put their shoes next together.
Well, this baby
This one did. He was a good boy.
Who adopted you?
Who adopted me?
One of those guys right there?
No, I've got a mommy. I've got a mommy at home.
You know, Landon, she's not adopted. You're very special because you're adopted.
Maybe. You was a baby, and I was grown up.
Do you have any?
I just got delivered to a hospital. My mom took me home.
Do you have any friends who are adopted?
No.
I think you do.
I think you do.
How about Lucas?
I think adoption's pretty cool
Yeah,
myself.
but he's a baby right now.
Well, he's not really baby. He's just 3.
But you remember, he was me a He was the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as long as you get a daddy or a mommy or something, that's all that counts.
That's right.
Something
What
that
about
loves you.
What about Sonny? He's adopted.
Sunny?
Mm-hmm.
You mean Sunny?
No, I mean Sonny.
You mean it's one of
Yeah.
mine? But Sunny, I saw Sunny. It's Sunny.
Sonny.
Yeah, it is. But where I saw her.
Him.
I think there's so many places that homophobia comes from, but the two that I think I would single out the most are from misguided religious interpretations and from sexism. I think you can't discount the role that religion-based bigotry plays. To be a young person raised in a faith tradition and hearing from the pulpit on a regular basis that you are less than, that you are not worthy of God's love, is devastating. And I think it has a huge impact on young people, and I think it enables other people in society and supports the kind of discrimination that we see institutionalized in our government. I think there's no question that the biggest source of opposition, unfortunately, is from the religious right and from these organizations that really have their focus on keeping LGBT people as second-class citizens. And certainly we saw that in Prop 8 with funding coming not only from the Mormon Church, but from other conservative religious organizations. There's the famous Gandhi quote, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And I think we're definitely in the fighting part of that right now. Because of the progress that we're making, we're seeing some really desperate attempts by the right wing to try and set us back. And I think constitutional amendments, things like Prop 8 that happened all over the country in the last few years, are really attempts to try and lock us in to discrimination in our constitutions at the state and federal level.
Is there any way that you can see that I can still love my homosexual friends and family members and not be considered a bigot when I don't want to compromise my beliefs? Because I saw that kind of running through your book, and I felt kind of just as taken aback by that word as you do on the other side of that.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I think it depends how you define the word bigot. And the reality is, during the 60s, a bigot was not a black person trying to get their full and equal rights, but it was the person who was trying to keep them from having their full and equal rights, and in fact, protecting their special rights. And in today's world, bigotry against gay people, it is what it is. And I would say to you, if you don't like that word that defines you, then learn a little bit more about it and why that word would be applied. You just can't change the words for the sake of changing, for the heck of changing the words.
Yeah, but see, if I can respond to that, I looked up bigot in the dictionary, and it says a person characterized by hatred and intolerance. And I don't hate you, and I'm not intolerant. I want to talk to you. I consider you a friend now after 4, and this would be the 5th conversation. This one just happens to have a few flies on the wall. So I just, I don't find that to be intolerant or hateful.
Well, I can appreciate that, and if you look at 7 different dictionaries, you'll get slightly different definitions.
I looked in the right one.
Well, that's the one that we could look at. But that's the reason I referenced the 60s, because that was the time when I was growing up and I first heard the word bigot, and I remember hearing some people saying, well, I'm not a bigot, you're being a bigot against me for not allowing me to want to have laws that exclude black people from my school and so on. So I'm using it as a commonly accepted definition of a word that has evolved of what that means. It is what it is.
Yeah, but I guess part of my point is, let's think about the kid who is going to a church where the pastor on a regular basis preaches homosexuality is an abomination and really uses all of the hate words and you know, they
Well, now, you just said that abomination is a hate word.
well, can I back up on that? Sure. Because if that had come, well...
Move the cameras back. No, go ahead.
The word abomination in Scripture is used with the same breadth as the word sin. So can I just read, we never pulled these out, we brought them up, but in Proverbs chapter 16, let me get my other notes because I'm going to forget where it was. That's a really bad thing to do to a Bible, isn't it? But I'm glad I did it instead of you, right? Because it would.
Absolutely.